Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are talking about water and water shortages. You might have already guessed it from the thumbnail. As you're probably aware guys, we are going through the drought yet again. This is a second summer we're having a massive issue with lack of water. And the reason I'm making this video guys, because I've seen an article which online which basically talks about water rationing. And no guys, we are not talking about the normal hosepipe bans that is currently happening in southeast of England and apparently in southeast of Wales. Just before I proceed into the rationing video, obviously for all of you who probably don't know, in the different countries hosepipe ban means that you guys not allowed to use hosepipe. So literally you only meant to use the water for cooking and for personal hygiene, basic necessities only. So you're not really allowed to go and say water your garden with a hose or your golf course, whatever else. So basically this is what it is. And it happened before. It pretty much happens every year, and it's kind of yet surprisingly that it does happen every year, and yet government's still not doing anything about it. So anyway, the thing I'm bringing to your attention guys is the article about the water rationing. So the government actually talking about bringing in the rationing of water allowance a year and then increasing and charging the price thereafter above the allowance you use. It's kind of a little bit weird, right? Because we are on a water meter, and I think many of the villages and many other places are on a water meter, so it means you pay for what you use. And it's the idea is they're meant to make you count down on your water usage. But to be fair, like guys, we're going through the drought. We ran out of 1,000 liters from IBC tanks, so my garden is drying out, so I'm using a hose because I'm still allowed at the moment. So technically it's like, if you really need to, you'll pay for it, you'll use it, you'll pay for it. And I think this is where the government wants to step away from, in terms of making it a little bit more unaffordable to have your access to overly excess of water, if that makes sense. As you get your allowance, okay, and let me grab my phone quickly. Okay, so you'll be allowed to have 30,000 liters of water for free, first of all, which is around 2 months supply of water for 4-person household. So next 25,000 liters will cost someone £1.50 for 1,000 liters, and any more after that will cost £4 for 1,000 liters. So the average person apparently uses about 150 liters of water per day. That's one person. So if you have 2 people, that's 300 liters, and obviously and so on. So that 30,000 liters is not really a lot. Like I said, it's about 2 months for 4 people. It's kind of okay. But can you imagine the prices and the increases of the paying £4 per 1,000 liters? If you have a large household and you have, say, a lot of people living there, a lot of children, you go through water. And I appreciate obviously the government wants for us to cut down the water usage, but this is article that tells you that government actually giving the companies a go ahead and trial this system. It's only so far one water company chosen to do so, okay, and apparently says that it will save on average people 30% in water costs. I honestly do not believe that, and I don't think they're certainly doing this to save the water. I think it's just another way of basically government making more money out of us, that's what they do anyway. It brings into to the question again, why are we spending so much money, not we, but a government, spending so much money anywhere else, and yet we're not managing our water supply? It happens year on, we're having the drought, and yet rather than building a lot of water reservoirs, okay, we're building more houses to house. I totally understand. We need housing because people are struggling. We need affordable housing as well. But yet, if we can't actually water people or feed people, then what's the point? You got to find a happy balance. It's in many other countries like Italy, Dubai, they actually filter seawater. Yet we're not. We're an island. We have water around us, and yet government chooses again to spend money somewhere else rather than invest into something like a seawater filtration, and yet we're still obviously paying the companies like a lot of money. I think our water bill is like £55. It's like 3 of us here, and I don't generally like water my garden with a hose. We do, as I said, have the IBC tank, and it's only really occasionally once we run out that I might water the garden with the water from the tap. So £55, it sounds quite a lot of water, and we don't really, as I said, use a lot. We're quite conservative in what we do. So basically the new thing there, the trialing guys, is literally looks like there to basically get more money from us. The other thing is that I've read that apparently it's the aim of government by 2050 to reduce the average household per person sort of use of water from 150 litres to just over 100 litres. That means that they want you to cut your water usage by pretty much 50% by 2050, and yet they still will choose not to invest money into actually trying to solve the problem rather than passing back on onto us. I absolutely understand, guys, we've got to be careful with water, that's totally correct, but I just bugs me that we're spending money everywhere else, but we just choose not to actually solve the issues like that. And apparently the whole thing with the hosepipe ban and the ban at the moment in the southeast of Wales and the southeast of England is the scary possibility. We've been through this because we used to live in Brighton in the southeast, and the whole thing that at any point any council can decide and say to you, do you know what, you're going to have your water off today for a majority of the day, and it's only going to come on like 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. So just imagine living your life knowing that you only have access to water like 4 hours a day. It could be absolutely ridiculous. Next thing I wanted to also say that we have reservoirs, right? We in Wales, we have fairly good amount of reservoirs, and although the small ones are drying out, we have one not far from us, okay? And it is a huge reservoir that's been only recently converted from a mining place, okay? And it is actually still really, really full. So I know that obviously there are, droughts and things like this, and reservoirs, some of them are drying out. But sometimes it just makes me wonder, because I'm looking at the reservoir not far from us, I'm like, okay, they're talking about drought in southeast Wales, and I'm like, but I'm seeing this massive, massive reservoir full of water. So it kind of makes me sometimes question, and forgive me if that sounds a bit odd, but as we know, as a preppers, we don't really trust a lot of things that government tell us and other big companies tell us anyway. So when I see the full reservoir, I'm like, okay, are we really, really short on water? I appreciate, yes, we haven't had rain, that's absolutely 100%, but is our reservoirs like really empty everywhere? I'm not so sure, because as I said, I'm looking at that, I'm like, I'm going to be questioning that one anyway. So I just would like to know, guys, right, it is a touchy subject, okay, and it's really, really important as a prepper to be prepared, and I will cover the water storage in a different video. The preparedness, guys, is to having yourself organized and prepared for an event like this, because as it clearly happening, okay, it's constantly happening every year, we're having the same problem, and be prepared, because from October, government going to start bringing the phasing in part of the water rationing. And I can't imagine myself, firstly, if you work out how much it is if you have a large family, like 4 or 6 people, to pay £4 for 1,000 litres of water after your free allowance and everything else, it works out like it's going to almost double the water bill for I think for a fairly largish family. So it's a little bit scary. So having a preparedness and having an ability to collect your rainwater, yes guys, not potentially for drinking, but to be able to like fill up your toilets and stuff, because I don't want to pay £110 on my water bill. So I want to make my utmost possible good choices to make sure we can limit our supply of water taken for the mains, and then obviously substitute it with things like an IBC tank. For all of you who are not sure, the IBC tank is these caged water tanks basically that are like big square ones. They hold just over 1,000 litres. As I said, we have one of them, and we are seriously considering having 2, just because, again, as a part of preparedness is to make sure that we are kind of foreseeing the circumstances, and the circumstance I gave you, it is going to be happening. The government will be rationing the water allowance. So another way of, when you look at it, is another thing of them to control what we do. If you think they're already controlling many things, and including obviously the food prices and things like that. And another thing is so close to home, guys, for the government to control your water allowance. You're going to be having a water allowance. How bad does that sound? Anyway, guys, I'm going to stop whinging. Please actually let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about what you think about this water allowance. And do you think it's actually going to make a difference to the whole water situation? Or do you agree with me, and do you think that the government should actually spend more money actually investing and building more reservoirs? Stop building kind of houses in the wrong places, but actually make sure you can feed and water the people. Because, again, I've seen the article saying that majority part of southeast going to be run out of water by 2050. So that means there'll be not enough water to cater for all the people they're building the houses for. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, guys. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.